Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. I read black books, and in this video I'm going to be going through some more of my horror books. I didn't plan this, but it is actually storming outside and it's kind of on brand for the books we will be talking about today. So we are going to start with Voices from the Other Side, which is curated by Brandon Massey, and it has stories in it from some of the OG black writers, including Eric Jerome Dickey and Tananarive Due and L.A. Banks. And the next book is another anthology series curated by Brandon Massey and Tananarive Due. It's Whispers in the Night, and it's just another book of short horror stories by black authors. The next book is Thunderland by Brandon Massey. It's one of my favorite Brandon Massey books. You've probably seen me talk about this book a lot. It's written in the perspective of a young boy, but it's not a YA book. It's definitely adult. It's written from his perspective and also his parents as well. And it's about this entity that he has been having dreams about on and off ever since the accident that he had when he was younger. He's been haunted by this entity in his dreams, and now this entity is haunting him outside of his dreams. I think I read it maybe 3 times already. We Are Here to Hurt Each Other by Paula D. Ashe, and this is a book of short stories by Paula D. Ashe, all pretty creepy. Even the cover is creepy, and it actually has something to do with the first couple of stories in this book. Please check the content and trigger warnings before going into these books. The next book is In the Dark by Brandon Massey, and I think this was the first book I ever read by Brandon Massey. It's one of my favorites. This one's actually one that kind of creeped me out. You can just read the synopsis here, Sleep with the Lights On creepiness. The Book of Secrets by Faith Mitchell. This is one that I never see talked about. It's about a group of students that go to explore this legend on this island off the coast of South Carolina. And this is a fictional island, but this story is inspired by true events. The next book is a really, really good one. On Sunday, She Picked Flowers by Yaya Schofield. I was able to get a copy of this first edition before they were all pulled. This book is getting republished. I think it's coming out sometime next year. All These Sunken Souls. This is a book of short YA horror stories. As far as YA horror stories goes, these are actually really good, really dark, and you can see the list of authors and their stories there. Nana by Brandon Massey is another one that I have in my Brandon Massey collection. So a lot of his books are available to read for free on Kindle, but if I find an author and a book that I really like, I usually want to have it in my collection, and I will continue with my Brandon Massey collection. And so this one was one of the more recent ones that I've added. You can read the synopsis there. Really good book. Again, check the content and trigger warnings before reading. Here is another anthology series by Brandon Massey and all the authors that you see there on the front. Dark Dreams. I really like this cover. Another collection of short horror stories by black authors. Ecstasy Agony by Wrath James White. I haven't read this one yet, but I've read one book by Wrath James White, and I know he's a splatter punk horror author, which I don't know if it's kind of my thing yet, but I definitely was intrigued by this cover, and I got this at Barnes & Noble. You don't really see many black horror books in the horror book section at Barnes & Noble, especially the Barnes & Nobles near me. So I decided to give this one a try, and I think it's a collection of short stories, so we'll see. The next book is 12 Hours by Elmarie Wood. You saw me reading this in a previous reading vlog. It's part of the selected papers from the Consortium for the Study of Anomalous Phenomena, a collection of stories from different authors, Hollow Tongue by Eden Royce, and it's a part of the same anthology series. Even though it's about 100 pages or so, it's a full story. It's really good, and I hope that maybe one day she'll expand on this story and kind of write more stories like this. Okay, Planet Dead by Sylvester Barzy. I found Sylvester Barzy just through social media. We follow a lot of the same people, and I see a lot of his books come up on my feed. So I got this one, and I also talked about his other one, Camp Lanier, which I had in my Kindle library. But this one is about a zombie apocalypse, and it's from an interesting perspective. So definitely give this one a try. Okay, this book right here, Forging a Nightmare by Patricia A. Jackson. And you have a serial unaliver that is going around unaliving people that were born with 12 fingers and 12 toes. Those people are called Nephilim. If you're not familiar with with that. It's a term for people who were conceived of a human and a demigod. This book is really good. I compared it to Supernatural meets New York Undercover. It's one of my favorite books of all time. You saw me in my last reading vlog when I was sent this by Kenya Mossdime. She sent me a copy of her latest book, Seed, and all the little goodies that came with it. And this is a continuation of a story that she had written in her anthology series, Sick XOXO, which I read on Kindle. A really good anthology series. We Don't Swim Here by Vincent Serrato. This was my second Vincent Serrato read, and this one was good. The Quarter Storm. So you may not consider some of these horror books, but this is maybe a speculative fiction book with some horror elements. This one is about a unaliving in the French Quarter that was very specific to the voodoo community. One of my favorite books of all time, by one of my favorite authors of all time. This is a continuation of that book. It's part 2 of it, The Foreign Exchange. The Black Girl Survives. This one is another YA horror anthology book series. But if I'm being honest, this one was just okay. I really liked all these Sunken Souls a little bit better. I felt the stories in all these Sunken Souls were more dark. These stories are kind of going to be like your typical young adult horror stories. Kind of campy, kind of silly. I mean, they're still entertaining, but if you're looking for something dark and gothic, you might want to go with All These Sunken Souls first. The Macabre by Kosoko Jackson. You saw me get this one in my last vlog. Yeah, my last vlog. I really was surprised at how pretty this book is. Like, the artwork inside, the cover is a really nice addition. I'm not sure what it's about yet, but hopefully I'll get to it soon. Spook Lights and Spook Lights 2 by Eden Royce. They are both collections of short stories, all by Eden Royce, all in the Southern Gothic horror genre, and they're really good. So if you're looking for something specifically Gothic horror, this is what I would suggest. The next book is probably one of the creepiest horror book covers that I've ever seen. The Devil in Silver by Victor Laval, because like, what is that on this cover? You'll find out what it is when you read the book, but that is such a creepy cover. This is a really good book. It's about a guy who finds himself in a mental institution. Of course, he thinks he doesn't belong there, but the more he believes he doesn't belong there, the more they keep him there. And the longer he's there, he starts to hear things in the walls and in the ceilings, and the other patients know exactly what he's hearing. Next is Creepin' by Monica Jackson, L.A. Banks, Donna Hill, J.M. Jeffries, and Janice Sims. So this is another kind of classic, kind of old school anthology series, but this one just kind of takes it to another level. This one's very adult, heavily centered on adult activities, but from a supernatural perspective. Next is When the Reckoning Comes by Latanya McQueen, and a lot of people like this book. It was just a okay read for me. It was an interesting story. It's pretty much about a woman who comes back for a wedding in her hometown, and the wedding is taking place on a plantation. A white people wedding taking place on a plantation. You pretty much know where that's gonna go if it's a horror book. This is another book that I'm so glad I got before it stopped being available for purchase. It's Just a Little Snack by Yaya Schofield, and this is some short stories. I think these stories are now available on Patreon, but they're just short little gothic horror stories. This World Is Not Yours. I haven't read this one yet, but I think this one is a space horror. The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. This is required reading at this point. Usually if you're looking for something, if you even type in black horror books, I mean, this is one of the ones that will always pop up. So pause and read the synopsis and please go read that book. Changeling by Victor Laval. A lot of people have mixed reviews about this. I actually really enjoyed this book. I think it's really well written. It's actually a show on Apple TV now too, but I didn't watch the show. I didn't care to watch the show because, I mean, the book did enough for me. But this one is a really, really good book, and yeah, you just like Oprah says up there, you won't be able to put this one down. Okay, next is another space horror, The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. This one's one of those short ones that you could probably read in a weekend. This one was really, really good. It takes place on a spaceship, and they are heading towards I think they're headed back towards Earth or something like that, but I mean, they're not gonna make it because there is something on this spaceship with them. So like I said, you could probably get through this in one sitting. The next book is Flowers from the Void by Gianni Washington. This is a book of short stories. I don't even know how to describe some of these stories. You can read that synopsis, but they're really good. I don't really see a lot of people talking about this book. Psychopop and Circumstance by Eden Royce, and it's an okay read. Has some horror elements to it. It's not that scary, so I would probably recommend this for beginners if you are just looking to get into some Black horror. This is a good place to start. All right, so the next book I have here is actually a children's book, and it's called The Dark 30 by Patricia McKissack. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I talk about this book a lot too. Even though it is a children's book of short supernatural tales, but they all have this hint of truth in them. You know, stories that our parents or grandparents used to tell us in the South. You hear iterations of these stories around a lot, so this one is a really good read, and reading it as an adult, it still gives me chills. Next is Jackal by Aaron E. Adams, and I know I've talked about this one before, especially in my Appalachian / folklore horror books by Black authors, but I'm really not the biggest fan of this book. Reading is subjective, so you should definitely form your own opinions about books, but I really did not enjoy this book as much as other people did. The next book I did enjoy very much, no matter what nobody says about it, and that is Out There Screaming by various authors and edited by Jordan Peele. There's only maybe 2 stories in this book that I didn't like. It is a book of short stories, all by Black authors. My favorite had to be Flicker, and I also like the story at the end by P. Jelly Clark. It was a highly anticipated read for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next is Lakewood by Megan Gidding, and this is one that I haven't gotten into yet. I've read a couple others by Megan Gidding, and she is a pretty solid author. When I have time, I'll maybe go back and try this one. I hear nothing but good things about it. Next is one of my favorite reads of 2024, and that's Talent of God by Wesley Snipes. I have been seeing that book around every time I was looking for, Black horror fiction or Black fantasy fiction. It immediately draws you in from the first page. It's essentially about a outbreak that happens one night, and the people that are affected turn into like these demon monsters, and it's up to a medical professional to help save these people, and she has the help of this supernatural being that comes in to aid with this outbreak because it's so much more than what it is on surface level. It's very, very Wesley Snipes-esque, if you know what I mean. If you've seen Blade and his action movies, it's very dark, it's very gritty, but is really, really good. House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. This was her second release after Year to Witching, and I had really high hopes for it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Year to Witching, but for what it was and what it's supposed to be, it was a pretty good read. However, this is another one of the ones where this kind of gets mixed into the vampire book category, and I just don't see that with this book. There is blood involved, but it just doesn't fit the vampire aesthetic to me. If you have any insights to how this book can be considered a vampire book besides the drinking of the blood, please let me know in the comments. Thanks. Next is Creatures of Passage by Morora Yejide. This is a book you definitely want to check the content and trigger warnings before going into. I didn't expect it from the synopsis of the book, but it is actually a very beautifully written, very sorrowful book. But it was really, really good. And without spoiling it too much, it is a Egyptian mythology retelling of Nephthys and her brother Osiris. It's kind of loosely based on their mythology, just in modern times. It takes place in the 1970s in New York, I believe, but this is kind of like a dystopian America in the 1970s, if that makes sense. It follows Nephthys as she tries to figure out what happened to her nephew, as well as what happened to her brother who has been missing for all these years. Next is We Came to Welcome You by Vincent Tirado, and this was the first book that I read by them. There are a lot of mixed reviews about We Came about We Came to Welcome You. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is about a couple who move into a new neighborhood and they are immediately accosted by the HOA, the Homeowners Association. And this Homeowners Association has some very strict rules and some weird rituals. One person in the couple kind of can rock with and just ignores the weirdness. Then we have the main character who is just like, I'm not doing this. This is weird. And that's who starts to have a lot of weird and horrific experiences with the HOA. Next is another book that I don't see talked about a lot. Honeysuckle and Bone by Trisha Tobias. And this one's a YA. It takes place in Jamaica. You've heard me talk about this one before. It's about a girl who is kind of fleeing a situation in her home state. She goes to take this job in Jamaica to hide out for a little bit, but those secrets come back to haunt her. This one was actually really good. The only thing I didn't like about this book was the audio version. Another Eden Royce book is The Creeping of Dogwood House, and she's been winning a lot of awards for this book. This book has been very well received, and it was good. It just wasn't what I really expected. It is about a boy who goes to live with his aunt and uncle in his mom and aunt's childhood home called Dogwood House. Over the years, the house has been deteriorating, so they're kind of fixing it up. But something in the house won't allow things to be just patched up that easily. This is definitely a middle grade book. Not one of my favorites, but it was a pretty good read. Next is another middle grade book, and it's called It Came from the Trees by Ali Russell. This one was a highly anticipated release, and it did not disappoint. I was surprised with how well this book was written, how well the story played out, how it was just the right amount of creepy and scary and spooky mixed with the right amount of plot and story, and just made you feel all the things. So I'm always looking forward to what she has going on next. So definitely check this one out if you haven't, and check out the other books and stories by Ali Russell as well. Sorrowland by River Solomon is another one that just, it gets talked about, but just not enough. Like, this should be made into a movie. One of my favorite reads of all time. I don't think I've ever read a bad book by River Solomon. They are a really talented author that doesn't get enough hype. So if you haven't checked this one out, definitely, this is the perfect time to read Sorrowland. The Summer I Ate the Rich. I talked about this one in previous vlogs, still have not read it. I don't know if I'm gonna get to it anytime soon. Next is Bleeding Violet by Dia Reeves. Don't see this book or Dia Reeves talked about. I happened upon her work as I was researching horror books to read by Black authors, came across her name. Found this one that to me seemed like a mix between, well, not a mix, but the character reminds me a lot of Wednesday Addams, but much darker, more weird, more grown. Main character in this book, she's a little bit too grown. I don't know if this is considered a YA. The main character is younger. I think she's in high school, but she be doing some grown stuff. It's essentially about a girl who was given away at birth, and she goes to find her birth mother after had been living with her father all these years, goes to find her birth mother and is adamant about living with her and getting to know her. Little does she know, this town that her birth mother now resides in has a lot of secrets of their own. And she slowly starts to find out some of these secrets aren't in her best interest. When the Night Whispers was one that was on my horror romance book list. And I read this one maybe right before or maybe right after watching Nosferatu. And I was like, this can be, like, if you were a fan of Nosferatu or horror romance movies and books like that, and you want to see more Black characters doing that, then this is the book you want to read. It's about a woman who moves back into her childhood home and discovers that her new neighbor has a thing for her, but the thing is not what it seems, what she thinks it is. She thinks like he's like really just like interested in her for love, but he has ulterior motives that can prove deadly for her. When We Were Birds. If you have not read this book, this needs to be the next one on your TBR. Like, why is nobody talking about this? I had never heard of this book or this author. I just found it one day in Barnes & Noble on my way out of the store. Picked it up, and this is probably the best book I've ever bought from Barnes & Noble. You ever just find that book that's like the best book you've ever read. I bought it blind without knowing anything. The synopsis sounded really interesting to me, and I was like, you know what, I don't care about reviews. I'm just going to take this home and I'm going to read it. I took it home and I did look at the reviews, and a lot of the negative reviews had said that they couldn't understand a lot of the dialogue or the language that the book was written in. And this is written in the author's native patois. And for me, I could read that. I have no problem with it. But for other people, not skin folk, they may have a hard time with it. And I mean, that's their problem. It does not take away from the book at all. This was such a beautifully written, dark love story. I cannot wait to read this book again. It's about time for me to read this book again. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to get as wrapped up in the story as I was the first time. Dead Girls Walking, again, you saw this one in my summer horror book recommendations. It's about a all black, all queer summer horror camp where the main character is a camp counselor because she's there looking for her mother's body, and it turns into like this whole summer camp horror from there. Dread Nation, I haven't read this book in a long time. I bought this when it first came out and I tore into it, read it, and just kind of forgot about it. Do I have the Deathless Divide? I don't have Deathless Divide. I need to get that book. Dread Nation was really good. It takes place during the Civil War era in the South, and it's about the zombie apocalypse. Kind of like a Pride and Prejudice zombies, but not so white. Hoodoo is a children/middle grade story about a young boy who comes from a family of hoodoo practitioners, but he can't really grasp the concept of his hoodoo magic. At this point, Ring Shout is required reading. If you have not read that book, it needs to be next on your TBR. You can read it like in a day. I've read this one twice. Second time, I listened to the audio and was finished with it in a day. I think it's only like maybe 4 hours. So yeah, if you haven't read this one, you need to get on that. Hide and Seeker, I talk about this one a lot too. Children's middle grade, about the game hide and seek gone very wrong. It is really good, but even though it is a middle grade book, this one is very dark and does contain some content and trigger warnings. Nightmare King is, I believe, I've heard it was in the same universe as Hide and Seeker. I have not read Nightmare King yet, but I definitely want to get to it soon. Beauty and the Blood was one that I just recently discovered. Had no idea it came out, and I mean, there was no marketing at all for this book. If you heard of it before this year or knew it was coming out, please let me know how you knew in the comments, because I never heard of this book. Not saying it was the greatest book I ever read. I started listening to the audiobook first, and it seemed very interesting, and I definitely wanted to have a copy of the book, continue reading it, and it was a pretty solid read. The plot was plotting. It was an okay read. Yummy or Yume, I'm not sure. This was recommended to me on one of my earlier videos on here when I was talking about weird books. I haven't started reading it yet. Actually, I did start reading it. I started maybe the first couple pages, but I was just like, this is gonna be one of those books where I'm gonna have to sit down and really concentrate on reading, and I just can't do that right now. I know it's gonna build up pretty slowly, and I just need books that are just starting off with a bang at first. But I know this one is gonna be good, and I want to try to get to it sometime this winter. The Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery. I didn't know if this was like horror, but then it did come with this sticker and it says glam horror, and that's a new one for me. This one was definitely glam horror. The main character was this glamorous publicist who represented very famous people, had this glamorous apartment, this glamorous office, and she was just glamorous herself. And one day when her past comes back to haunt her, like literally haunt her at a fashion show, she continues to try to hide her past, but knows that she has to go back to her roots to solve this issue of what's haunting her. Pretty good read. Would definitely recommend it if you are looking for glam horror. Okay, so that's it for this video. I think I have one more video to do. That was my first full bookshelf, and I have another second bookshelf that has horror books on it, so we'll get to that in the next video. It will have some really good gems on it, so definitely watch that one. Thank you for watching this one, and remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.